Welcome back. Well, let's get more reaction, of course, to the big story of the day. You can imagine some of the questions that come up around the arrest and the fact that Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula has formally resigned as the Speaker of the National Assembly. Of course, to remind you, she was released on bail of 50,000 rand today. And all of this relates to 2.3 million rand the NPA says she received as the proceeds of corruption while she was the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans. Rebone Tau, a political analyst, wrote that book, The Rise and Fall of the ANC Youth League. Rebone, good afternoon. Thanks for coming in. I mean, in a way, this is an incredible story. I keep coming back to the simple fact. It sounds a bit boring, but the National Assembly Speaker has been formally charged. She's resigned. I mean, this is a series of really big, almost momentous events.
Absolutely. I mean, I was saying what is very interesting is that we must remember, Stephen, that in the next few days we'll be celebrating 30 years of the democracy. You know, and she's arrested, in April, a very significant month for us South Africans, and she was one of those people who were there in 1994, in Parliament as a member of Parliament, and this is how her journey ends, as a parliamentarian.
This must be bad for the ANC, right? They're in an election campaign right now. Former President... Gosh, watch me get myself into trouble. President Cyril Ramaphosa has continually said that, he wants to renew the ANC. There's that famous phrase, the ANC is sort of accused number one in the dock. And here we have a very high-profile person in the figure of Mapisa-Nqakula being accused and charged and arrested in line with corruption.
I mean, the reality of the matter is that she was retiring. She was not elected in 2022 at the ANC conference. She's not on the ANC list to Parliament. She was retiring now as a politician. So I don't think that it really for me is about renewal, because you have people who are appearing on the Zondo Commission list who are appearing on the ANC list. But although the ANC has said that the list is not yet final, they're still vetting. Some of their members will see the final list. But unfortunately, I don't think that they were at the renewal stage when you still have people who appear on the Zondo Commission on allegations of corruption appearing to be in the next administration.
Does this hurt the ANC, such a high-profile arrest?
Excuse me?
Does it hurt the ANC, such a high-profile arrest?
Definitely it will hurt, the ANC in terms of, having someone of her stature, And, this matter has been in the media for days, and in the rural areas, I'm not sure, but I think in the urban areas, they will lose that middle-class vote that probably, was still leaning towards voting for the ANC, but still not decided, So I think a certain class, a grouping of people might actually decide that this is enough with the ANC. And, the reality of the matter, this is someone that, even the step-aside rule for me, because she's not serving in any structure of the ANC, she's merely an ordinary member of the ANC, so it doesn't even matter, the step-aside rule.
If you look at, there's an element of tragedy to her, I suspect, as there often is with a senior politician who ends their career in this way. I mean, she was part of the ANC for a long time, as you say, from 1994. But long before that, of course, that's how she ended up in Parliament, was her role in the struggle and what she was doing then. She was important in the ANC Women's League at one point, I nearly forgot.
She was the president.
She was the president, yes. And then, for it to end like this, and I kind of feel that, in the history of Nosiviwe, when the history of this time is written, I mean, is she going to be remembered? This is a horrible thing to say. Is she only going to be remembered for this, or is she going to be remembered for other things too?
I think, when your reputation is tarnished, we forget about the good things that you've done as a person. We focus. So it will depend if how the case will go once it goes to trial, and if NPA has got a strong case against her, and if she, because she has to now go and prove herself, if the things that she's accused of, she has done them,
It's interesting because I think that there were, these claims first emerged quite a while ago, and they were sort of ignored at the time. And clearly, the NPA and the investigative people have been doing their work, and importantly, the person who says they paid her the money, and then turned state witness, and that was clearly the key moment. That's when the contractor wrote an affidavit, and then the NPA started to bring charges. But there were questions around her track record as Minister of Defence. Was it a bad idea to make her Speaker?
I mean, the issue of how she was removed, we know that it was after the July unrest, the report that came out, and if you look at, you had the Minister of Police being retained in that position and the Minister of Defence being removed, And it came as a shock, as a surprise, when we saw her, going back to Parliament and being the Speaker. And that's a more powerful position, than being the deputy, than being a minister, because now all ministers account to you, the President accounts to Parliament and so forth. So it was, I think, it came as a surprise for many of us that she was retained and kept as a Speaker of Parliament.
I always think that being the Speaker of our National Assembly right now, for even a person who everyone sees as completely objective, is a difficult job. But to come from the ANC or to come from any of the parties and now have to try and keep order in the National Assembly is actually even more difficult. I mean, how are we going to remember her as Speaker? Again, it may well just depend only on the court case. But I think, opposition parties clearly have no love for her, but I don't think they'd have any love for anyone who came from the ANC.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at, I've been talking to some people over the past few days, or few weeks, You look at some would say that the Phala saga, she didn't want to go for a secret ballot, after the report was tabled in Parliament of the committee that was to investigate on the matter of Phala, the issue of Mkhwebane, the issue of Judge Hlophe, and when I speak to some parliamentarians, they say this is the most harsh parliament, because they have dealt with a lot of black people in this administration. So there's a lot of dislike of what has happened during her tenure as the Speaker of Parliament. And people were like, but she's been loyal to the ANC till the end, and how did we end here? And these are the questions that are being asked by some of the parliamentarians that I've engaged with.
There's so much to it. The National Prosecuting Authority, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the NPA has often, in the recent past, been accused of not dealing with corruption relating to politicians, and politicians from the governing party specifically. I don't think anyone can accuse them of doing that here. They seem to have brought a solid case. They dealt with her application against them, and they went to court today.
No, absolutely. I mean, for me, as I say, that we wait for the trial, to see how the evidence that will be put forward, how strong is it, will she be acquitted or will she be found guilty, because at the end of the day, I mean, even for her to try and stop the arrest, we're talking that they seem not to have a case, she just needs to go and present herself, and here, because the other thing that, her lawyers were arguing that they've not seen the docket and so forth. So you are arguing on things that you have not seen. And we heard earlier on also when the NPA was saying that they will present the name of witnesses on Monday by 4 p.m. So there's a lot of things I think that are going to be unfolding. And I think also they've also mentioned that there's another accused,
This
so
is the
there's
question
a lot
now,
of things,
isn't it?
Who's this other accused? Who are these other witnesses? Because for now we know only one witness. So we were all waiting for Monday. Yeah.
Do you think that this helps the NPA in its claim that it's independent?
I think it does, help. But also I think for me, we are to see with the Zondo Commission, those people who are implicated there. Because those people, you must remember that they are still serving in the National Executive Committee of the ANC, some of them. And some of them are also in the cabinet. So the question is that with her, who was exiting politics, by the way, so and she was not even in the Zondo Commission, she was not implicated there. So for me, I'm saying we still have to give NPA time to see how really do they take their work serious, and will they deal with those that are implicated in the Zondo Commission.
It's interesting to watch our elections and people talk about corruption, because all political parties say they work against corruption. And sometimes corruption becomes a big issue. It's a big issue now, I think, because of the allegations against Mapisa-Nqakula. And then corruption sort of goes away and there'll be another something else that we will all fight over or discuss or become consumed by. Do you think that corruption is still going to be a big issue in our elections, or is it going to be replaced by something else like load shedding or water shedding or something like that?
I think it remains a big issue. It will be in these elections, and especially with this case, going on. Although, unfortunately, the next issue needs to appear in court on the 4th of June. This will be after elections. But, political parties will be using this, as a tool, to say how corrupt these people are. Look at their speaker has been arrested and she's now out on bail. So political parties are going to use this as a leverage.
Rebone Tau, thank you very much indeed. And listen, author of the book, The Rise and Fall of the ANC Youth League.